today's video we look at the 10 new Western Alliance tanks that are coming into World of Tanks console. Of course, if you're interested in any of these new tanks, then you'll want to stick around and have a look at what they are. Now, first things first, we have 10. They are the American line, basically, American light tanks within the game. They have one medium tank, which is the M60A2, and we have a few things to go over. Now, of course, they have tanks in each of the eras, being Post-War Era 1, Escalation Era 2, and Detente Era 3. Obviously, they will match up against the tanks within the tier, so the M24 Chaffee 53 here will be matching up against things like the T44, the T54, the T62. So yeah, these are all tanks that they'll all meet, and of course, we will go through each one of them right now. Now, of course, M24 Chaffee 53. This one is probably going to be a very painful tank to be grinding through. Costs 3.46 million credits in order to actually purchase the tank when it comes into the game. You'll also have a few tank lines that will come off of it. You can unlock it with the M46A1 pattern, so it comes off of the pattern that you got at the beginning. So if you want to grind out towards this line, I would recommend playing the M46A1 pattern right now. Grind out a load of XP, get yourself towards that tank when it comes in. We don't know exactly how many research XP that you're going to need within the game when you actually get on, but of course you will have to kind of assume that it will probably be 100,000 XP or something like that to be able to pick up this tank straight away. So grind out 100,000 XP on the M46A1 pattern on the Western Alliance. This one probably going to be pretty poor, probably not going to be too great in game, and of course you'll probably have pretty low penetration that you'll find very, very difficult to be able to compete with some of the more heavily armoured mediums at the tier. And of course, make sure that you kind of play it like a traditional light tank. Definitely don't go brawling against the mediums in this thing, because you will get wiped out very, very quickly. And if it plays anything like the Chaffee in the current game, in World War II, the mode that actually gets the majority of players, then yeah, I guess you can kind of work that out for yourself. Play like this tank as in the World War II mode, except obviously now you have the spotting mechanics and the changes to them. So this tank might actually end up being a little bit better, maybe because you rely on a little bit more spotting to be able to detect your enemies. Yeah, let's see how they play. Now, second one. What is kind of special about the M41A1 Walker Bulldog is coming into the game. Of course, it's just a reskinned Bulldog that they've put on the Cold War mode. Yeah, purchase cost 4.4 million silver, very, very expensive to begin with. This one will definitely play very, very similar to the Walker Bulldog on the current game, the M41. Yeah, not much to say about this thing. They're kind of like a fast version of a medium tank, so I would kind of call it like a light medium, if that makes sense, because it is fast, it can get up to top speed, it has the spotting ability, but it's very, very boxy. It's quite a big tank comparatively to the majority of light tanks within World of Tanks. So if you're interested in actually picking up this tank, then take that into mind, play it like a medium light tank. So yeah, definitely don't go playing it like a traditional light tank, trying to overtake people and out-traverse people within the game, because that probably won't work out very well. Of course, there are opportunities when you can do that, but you definitely don't want to be taking them necessarily straight away with this tank. This will be coming in at the third, so this is probably the pinnacle of the light tanks in Era 1, and of course we will get on to the next one in just a second. Now, T92 is the first one in the second era, I believe, so this one, 5.4 million purchase cost, ridiculous price. It's just another skinned or slightly changed version of the T92 light tank that you can get on World War II mode, of course. Not very many new tanks coming in with this update. They say new tanks, but they're just basically the tanks from World War II that they're put into one tech tree line and then calling them different. This one is in the Escalation era, so that's Era 2. You can basically get this from the M41 Walker Bulldog, so it's just a straight line in terms of how you can actually get to the top one. It gives you access to the M55 1 Sheridan, so that is the next tank in the line. This one will play very much like your traditional T92 light tank in World War II if you've ever played that. It was part of an operation recently where you could pick it up for free. I think it was like that play 70 days out of like 90 or something like that, and you could pick it up for like the 40 day of logging in out of those 90 days, and of course you can pick it up just on its own. So if you've ever played this thing, pretty fast, fairly boxy, very wide hull comparatively to like the length of it. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit strange to play. Movement, not particularly great, as with the American tanks, or light tanks I should say. They don't tend to turn very quickly. But then again, I guess if you're interested in playing light tanks on the Cold War mode and you don't want to have to purchase things like the Cobra Hiss, which will cost you money, then this is kind of the next kind of step in that direction, I guess, for light tank players on the Cold War mode, if you actually enjoy the Cold War mode at all. Now, next one. M55-1 Sheridan, or M551 Sheridan, whatever you want to call it. That's what it is, 6.32 million silver in order to purchase it. So you're going to be costing yourself, probably just to get up to this point, approximately 15 million silver, probably somewhere in the region of that. Very, very expensive in order to grind through the tank lines. Obviously, you get 50% of the silver back when you sell the tank, but yeah, it's very, very expensive. Not entirely sure why they costed them so much. They should have probably been comparatively to like a tier 1 tank and then done it that way in terms of the silver, but I guess they're just trying to farm some of the older players of all of the silver that they had drained on their account. So yeah, M551 Sheridan, this looks like it has the derp gun, so you're going to be able to have the derp gun on this thing, which is going to be fun for those of you who have played the Sheridan on the standard game mode. Of course, it has that really troll side armor which enables you to pull off bounces, which is really, really annoying on the World War II mode. The amount of times I've hit at a Sheridan in the side and it's just done absolutely nothing. Yeah, definitely a tank that is fairly good on the World War II mode. I'm not going to call it a terrible one. Is it overpowered? Probably not. I don't think any of the light tanks on the Cold War mode are going to be too super overpowered, but I think that they could be competitive, and of course we haven't actually played them yet, and so yeah, I think that that's important. Now, US militaries search for an exceptional air mobile armoured vehicle design, blah blah blah, which could fire cannon rounds and guided missiles. So it looks like the American line will be able to actually play with guided missiles in the game. So that's always something very, very interesting for you to actually play with. This tank will get guided missiles, so it looks like the Western Alliance will be getting the counter to the Russian guided missiles that they got, which were, I guess, kind of unfair how they brought it out with just the Eastern Alliance, and the Western Alliance had no kind of counter. So yeah, very interesting. The tank experienced recoil on firing. Additionally, an aluminium hull provided little protection against ground mines. So there we go. Sheridan will have guided missiles, or at least from the text. I don't know if Wargaming are actually going to do that in game, but I would guess they would, considering, like, you know, missiles are in the game, and I can't expect it would take too much coding or at least development to be able to actually bring that into the game. Now, looking at this tank, a completely new tank in the game, the Stingray. This looks like a very interesting Western Alliance tank. It will cost you 7.23 million credits to be able to purchase. Obviously, you earn quite a lot more in the Cold War game mode in terms of the silver that you can actually earn every single game, but it's going to take you a long time, probably more time than you'll actually be able to earn the tank from. So we'll probably have to play more games in premium Cold War vehicles, of course, because that's kind of how they're kind of setting up the microtransactions in Cold War, is just focusing on people having to buy premiums in order to compete, or at least buy the tanks that they're actually grinding through, because the grinds are fairly similar every single tier. Now, what does this tank probably offer? Well, it looks like it gets somewhat turret armor, so I would expect that the turret armor actually works a little bit. Don't know entirely, and of course we haven't got the armor statistics, which I'd love to actually see them actually put into the game. Might not have super turret armor, but it's going to be fairly hard to hit, and I've guessed that when you're cresting ridgelines with this thing using gun depression, which it appears to be getting, then I would assume that you'll be able to put out some good shots into opponents on these ridgelines, and then hightail it out there using the good mobility of the light tank class, and trying to avoid as many shots as possible. Whether or not this gets missiles is unknown. Wargaming don't tend to put a lot of information as to the light tanks for some reason, and that's kind of a bit of a letdown, to be honest. I would have loved to see more kind of comments on what these are, and just letting us know a little bit more information, being a bit more transparent would have been very, very fun, but I guess we'll just take it and roll with it. Now, of course, we have another tank. This is the M113. This looks so novel. I really want to get my hands on it. Looks very, very interesting. This one comes in the escalation era. It gives access to the M55-1 Sheridan. So, of course, that's leading on to this tank right here, the M551 Sheridan. I think that this tank is going to be very, very interesting. It looks like a really novel new tank within the game. I would assume it gets a guided missile by the looks of it. And I would assume that this is traditionally what you would like to call a passive light tank. You're not going to be wanting to get too involved in the fighting. You want to be staying slightly further back using the kind of spotting that this tank will probably get. I would assume that it gets very high spotting or view range in order to make it kind of at least comparable to the tiers or the tanks that you're going to be fighting, the T-72s and all of that. Looks very interesting. Definitely a tank I want to get my hands on, give it a go, see if it's actually any good or not, or whether it's just terrible like it probably might be. And yeah, if you want to purchase this, 5.4 million silver, quite expensive. But then again, I guess it will be interesting to play. Now, the next tank. This is a medium tank. This looks to be the final tank within the kind of tank line, if that makes sense. So in order to be able to get this tank, the M60A2, you will have to get it from the M60A1 pattern. This gives you a very interesting look. Like, what is this? It's got what seems to be a derp gun on the front of it. It's got this massive cupola. It almost looks, if you've seen the, not the AE Phase 1, the Concept 1B, that kind of turret where it bulges out to the left and right of the turret and then has this kind of rectangular bit down the middle. It looks kind of like that. Of course, you've got the pattern hull, which is terrible, and you're going to get penned all over in this thing. Don't know how the turret will work because of the massive cupola, which is probably a big, big weak point. And so the armor is probably never going to work in this thing. You get the 152mm XM81 gun on a new low-profile turret and mounted on an M60 hull. So yeah, this tank should be very, very interesting. Nicknamed the Starship. Brilliant. Definitely a tank that looks interesting. Whether or not it will be competitive against some of those Russian medium tanks and the heavy tanks in the escalation era is unknown, and I would expect that it probably isn't that good. Definitely an interesting one. Whether or not I'll pick it up within the game, I'll probably go down the light tank route if I'm going to play Cold War, to be honest with you. But certainly a tank that might be interesting to some of you, and it's definitely a novel one with this weird turret and the derp gun that it will be getting. And then finally, the Stingray 2. This is the Western Alliance Detente era tank. So this is the final era. This is the starter one. This costs 8.25 million. That is ridiculous, the price. It gives access to the M8 AGS and the M3 A2 Bradley, so that's a little bit of a teaser there. We'll look over those tanks in just a second, but this one comes with a 105mm low recoil forced gun, so this one is going to be super accurate. You're going to be able to fire on the move, I would expect. It doesn't have the derp gun. Whether or not you'll be able to use missiles is unknown. Haven't been given any information on that. I would expect that you'll probably be able to fire guided missiles with the light tank line. Not entirely sure. You certainly will be with the Bradley, because I believe in real life that actually has guided missile rounds, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is true on World Tanks. Looks very, very interesting. Looks like a cool little tank. I expect that the armor somewhat works if you're going very, very quickly and at a stupid angle when they're going to hit, but for the most part you'll probably be taking every single hit that you take, and you're going to be taken out very, very quickly if you do get hit within the game. So yeah, an interesting one. Definitely looks really cool. I like the look of the tank, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it plays in game. Then the next one, M8 AGS. This is the upgraded version of the Stingray 2, so this is the next one. It's unlocked with the Stingray 2, and so you'll be able to pick it up. 9.17 million silver to pick it up. Ridiculous pricing now. It's getting absolutely out of hand. You'll be spending probably, if you want to research all of these, oh god, maybe 100 million silver in total, considering you'll have to be unlocking the packages as well. So, yeah. This is absolutely disgusting. This basically is the end of the light tank line on the Detente era. So this is where it ends. There are no other tanks leading on from this. End of the line does not unlock access to additional tanks. You might have to upgrade this tank. It comes with a 105mm XM35 gun, and you may be able to use maybe a slightly higher alpha damage gun, but that's unknown currently. And of course we will look through the tanks when they come out in game, but this is kind of like a review of what the tanks are probably going to play like given my experience with the game. Not necessarily going to be 100% accurate, but of course I'm definitely wanting to see what your opinions are in the comment section down below. This is going to be a very interesting time for World of Tanks console, at least in terms of giving a bit more diversity to the world, or to the Cold War game mode, because that's what is kind of lacking right now. Not enjoying the fact that, you know, there's probably only a couple competitive tanks within the Cold War game mode, and at each tier some of them are just way better than their counterparts on the Western Alliance, and I found that the Eastern Alliance has been superior in the current meta within Cold War at the moment. Now, moving on, M3A2 Bradley. This is unlocked with the Stingray 2. So, tech tree line, what does it go? It goes Stingray 1, then you get the Stingray 2, then you get either a choice of purchasing the Bradley, which seems to be a guided missile launching light tank, and you'll have the ability to pick the Stingray 2, or the M8 AGS even, from the Stingray 2. This one is at the end of the line. There are no additional tanks after this, and it shoots ATGM, which is the guided missiles within the game. I guess that maybe this is the only one that actually fires guided missiles, not entirely sure. Doesn't seem to be given too much information. It's got this little pea shooter gun, probably a tiny little one. The M2, although it appears similar to the M2, designated as an infantry fighting vehicle, I would expect that this gun is probably useless in game, and that you're going to have to fire missiles if you want to actually be competitive within the game. Maybe it's just like a pea shooter, you'll be shooting every second or something like that. Maybe it's an autoloader. It could definitely be an autoloader within the game, you know, maybe call it a 10-shot autoloader with like a putt-putt gun. But guess we'll have to wait and see. Guess we'll have to see how it plays in game. I'm definitely looking forward to this, and it is the tank that I think will be very, very interesting. One to grind, but it will cost you 9.2 million silver in order to do that. Sorry, my phone keeps going off. But thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think of these tanks. Do you like the look of them? Is it going to make you play Cold War? Because I know that, 50-50 of you said that you're not enjoying World of Tanks right now. And I know that a lot of people are more populated on the World War II game mode rather than the Cold War game mode. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And a big thank you for watching to the end of this video. And I hope you come and join us back for some more content in the next video. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.